I met Sierra on a July afternoon that felt more like a movie scene than real life. It was a backyard barbecue in a quiet Knoxville suburb, the kind of place where everyone leaves their shoes by the porch and kids run through sprinklers in swimsuits. I wasn't supposed to be there. I had tagged along with a buddy from work who promised good ribs and better company. He wasn't wrong about either. Sierra was standing under a string of droopy patio lights, sipping lemonade from a mason jar and laughing like nothing in the world could touch her. There was something magnetic about her. She wasn't the loudest in the crowd, but her presence filled a space anyway. I watched her from across the yard longer than I'd like to admit before she caught me staring and walked over like I was the one who needed to explain myself. "You lost or just shy?" she asked with a smirk. That was her opening line. From there, we spiraled. I told her I worked with irrigation systems, that I traveled around the state patching up machinery in fields most folks wouldn't be caught dead in. She told me she taught music at a charter school and volunteered at her church food pantry. I liked that. She had depth, thoughtfulness, and something about the way she listened made me feel seen. That summer, we moved fast. I think we both just wanted to believe in something solid. Within the year, we got married in her uncle's backyard under an oak tree draped with lanterns. Small ceremony, nothing fancy. We said our vows barefoot in the grass, and I genuinely believed that day was the start of forever. But here's the thing nobody warns you about: sometimes forever starts to crack in the quietest ways. 2 years in, and we were settled into a rhythm. She still hummed while she cooked, still rubbed my shoulder when I worked late in the garage. But the conversations got shorter, the smiles tighter. Nothing explosive, just little shifts, like a house slowly sinking into its foundation. Then came her father's birthday. Her dad, Russell, was turning 65, and Sierra insisted we make the trip across town for a family breakfast. Nothing big, she told me. Just pancakes and stories. I didn't think much of it. These gatherings were part of being married. You show up, smile, hug people who ask invasive questions about your life, and sneak out before anyone starts talking politics. We pulled into her sister's driveway around 9 a.m. The house was already packed. I carried in a bottle of bourbon I'd picked up special. Russell was a whiskey guy, and I figured it was a safe bet. Inside, the vibe felt off. Can't explain it exactly. It wasn't tense, just oddly quiet around me. Sierra darted ahead, hugging cousins and aunts while I stood in the entryway like a guest who'd shown up to the wrong party. I followed her into the kitchen, trying to blend in, but it was like I'd become invisible. People asked her questions and skipped right over me like I was an accessory, not her husband. And Sierra didn't do a thing to change that. She introduced me once barely. "Oh, and this is," she didn't even say, "my husband Caleb." Just waved her hand like I was part of the furniture. Then she was off again, setting out cutlery and laughing too hard at things I couldn't hear. I tried to brush it off. Maybe she was distracted. Maybe family dynamics just made her weird. But it kept happening. Every time I walked into a room, she moved 2 steps away. Then, halfway through breakfast, Logan walked in. I'd never met him, but I felt something jolt the second he entered the room. He had that casual charisma that made you like him and hate him at the same time: wavy dark hair, a smile that lingered too long, and this confident way of taking up space without asking for permission. I watched as Sierra froze for a split second when she saw him. Not fear. Not surprise. Just a flicker of something unreadable. Then she smiled, and it looked practiced. She walked over to him like they shared some private language. I followed, curious. "This is Logan," she said, her tone light but her posture too rigid. "A friend from church." "Nice to meet you," I said, offering my hand. Logan shook it, firm grip, long hold. "Likewise. I've heard things." Then he grinned and turned to Sierra, ignoring me completely. That's when it clicked. He knew her well. Too well. They started chatting, easy and fast, like they'd rehearsed it. He called her C. Nobody else did that, not her family, not her friends, not even her mom. And Sierra didn't correct him. I stood there like a damn ornament, watching this stranger talk to my wife while she laughed at all his jokes and leaned in just a little too close. At one point, I asked, "So, what church do you go to?" Logan paused. "Just for a beat?" "First Baptist," Sierra cut in, answering for him. "The downtown campus." Except Sierra hadn't been to church in months. She told me she felt spiritually out of sync and needed a break from the pressure. Now here she was, tossing out locations like a script. The rest of breakfast was a blur. Russell gave a toast. People clapped. Logan sat across from Sierra, and I watched them share glances over eggs and bacon like I wasn't even there. I didn't make a scene, I just noted everything. The way she tilted her head when he spoke. The way her laugh dropped an octave more in asterisk mate. The way she reached for his arm once when nobody was looking. But I was looking. After we helped clean up, Sierra all but rushed us to the car. I waited until we were out of her sister's neighborhood before I asked the question I'd been biting back all morning. So, Logan, how do you really know him? She didn't answer right away. Just kept her eyes on the road like she was reading lines off a windshield. I told you. Church friend. You haven't been to church in 5 months. She sighed. Loudly. Like she was exhausted by me. Why are you interrogating me, Caleb? It was just breakfast. You always do this. You read into things, twist them around. I'm not twisting anything, I said calmly. I just noticed you seemed close. She laughed bitterly. You know what your problem is? You need constant reassurance. It's suffocating. There it was. The shift. From concern to blame. I didn't respond. I knew if I pushed it would turn into something bigger. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. We rode in silence for the rest of the drive, the tension thick enough to choke on. I stared out the window at the passing fields and fences and wondered if I'd just imagined the whole thing, if maybe I was being paranoid. But deep down, something felt different. Something had changed. And once the doubt creeps in, it doesn't leave. It plants roots. It waits. Back home, she went straight to the bedroom, changed out of her dress, and said she needed a nap. I stood in the kitchen for a while, staring at nothing, remembering the way Logan's eyes tracked her every move. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted to believe it was nothing. But it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like the start of something I wasn't ready to name. The next morning, I was on the road before sunrise. My company had a contract just outside Johnson City, about 3 hours away, and I'd agreed to oversee some repairs on a grain auger system that had locked up mid-harvest. I didn't mind the drive. Truth be told, I welcomed it. The cab of my truck felt like the only place where I could actually think without the air getting tight. Sierra was still asleep when I left. Or pretending to be. Her back was turned, curled toward the far side of the bed, and when I whispered, "Bye, love you," she didn't move. I drove in silence, no music, just the hum of the tires and my thoughts buzzing like angry bees. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting, reading too much into what happened at the breakfast. But the more I replayed it, the more everything clicked in ways I hadn't seen before. That wasn't the first time she'd introduced someone vaguely. That wasn't the first time she shifted blame when I asked something uncomfortable. And suddenly, memories started lining up like pieces from a puzzle I hadn't realized was sitting in front of me all along. I remembered the night I walked into the living room and saw her snap her laptop shut like she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. It was a reflex, sure, but one I'd never seen from her before. She laughed it off, said she was reading something dumb, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was lying. Then there was the weekend she told me she needed space to think and spent 2 days at her friend Angela's cabin in the hills. When she came back, she said they'd mostly just watched documentaries and cooked vegan chili. I believed her. I even joked about how she smelled like smoke and lentils. She smiled, but her smile was off. Thin. Forced. But the biggest one? The passwords. About a month ago, Sierra had changed the passcodes on all her devices. No explanation. I'd noticed when I tried to pull up Spotify on her iPad to queue up a playlist we used to listen to during dinner. Locked. I asked her about it, and she shrugged, said she was tightening up her digital life. I figured she was just being cautious. Now I wasn't so sure. Then there was her phone, always on silent. Always face down. Always with her. She used to leave it on the kitchen counter when we watched movies or cooked together. Not anymore. Now it lived in her back pocket or under her pillow, and when it lit up, she'd glance at the screen with this unreadable look and press the power button before I could catch even a glimpse. I remembered one night when I reached over in bed and felt her tense up. I hadn't even touched her, just moved the sheet, and she flinched like I was intruding. When I asked if something was wrong, she said she was just tired. Always tired. Once, she said her phone had died and she hadn't noticed. That wouldn't have been weird, except it had been dead for almost 24 hours, according to her. She claimed she left it in the car. But Sierra never left her phone in the car. She'd rather lose her keys. Another memory, that day I found a receipt tucked between the seats of her car. 2 lattes extra espresso from a place halfway across town. It was a Tuesday. Mid-morning. She had told me she was running errands alone. The receipt was dated that same day. I remember holding it in my hand, trying to make it fit some innocent scenario. I even asked her about it in a roundabout way. She brushed it off, said she'd grabbed coffee with a colleague after a teacher's workshop. No big deal. Maybe it wasn't. Or maybe it was exactly what I was starting to fear. I thought back to the afternoon she came home late from a school board meeting. Hair freshly styled. Nails done. Wearing lipstick she never wore to meetings. I asked how it went and she said it was fine. Boring. She didn't look bored, she looked flushed. Energized. I had convinced myself she just needed to feel good about herself. That she deserved it. That a woman working as hard as she did should be allowed her space, her time, her freedom. But now, with the Logan thing hanging in my head, those moments didn't feel innocent anymore. They felt orchestrated. The more I thought, the more I noticed a pattern. Like how she'd started picking fights for no reason. Tiny arguments. About the thermostat. The groceries. Whether or not I folded the laundry right. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Her job had been overwhelming, her mom had been sick for a while, and life just had a way of piling on. But it wasn't the fights themselves, it was what happened after. She'd stay angry longer than she used to. She'd go for long drives without saying where. She'd disappear into the bathroom for 30 minutes with her phone, and when she came out, her whole mood would change. Once, I heard her talking in the guest room with the door almost shut. I figured it was a private call, and I respected that. But when I passed by and heard her laugh, this soft, breathy laugh I hadn't heard in months, I froze. It wasn't a friend laugh. It was something else. When I walked in and asked who she'd been talking to, she didn't answer. Just said it was no one. No one, I thought, but she was smiling when she hung up. The signs were all there. I just hadn't wanted to see them. By the time I reached Johnson City, my jaw was tight, my hands stiff on the wheel. I parked behind the co-op and sat in the truck longer than I needed to. I looked at my own reflection in the rearview mirror and barely recognized myself. I looked like a man who'd just come out of a storm and wasn't sure if the rain had stopped. That night, I stayed in a cheap motel off the highway. The kind with a flickering sign and carpets that smelled like mildew. I couldn't sleep. Not from the road, not from the noise. My brain was burning with questions I didn't have answers for. Had it been going on long? Was Logan the first? Was Logan even the only? I didn't want to believe it. But a part of me already knew. I thought about checking her phone. Planning something. Hiring someone. I didn't like the person those thoughts were turning me into, but they came anyway. I'd never been the jealous type. I'd always believed in trust, in partnership, and not treating your spouse like a suspect. But now? Now I didn't know who she was. I didn't even know if I wanted to find out. The next morning, before I drove back, I stopped at a diner and ordered eggs I didn't eat. I stared at the laminated menu while the waitress poured my coffee and said I looked like I'd lost something. I just nodded. I had lost something. I just wasn't sure what yet. But I could feel it, whatever it was, slipping further away every day. 2 weeks passed after that breakfast, and the space between Sierra and me only widened. We still went through the motions, shared dinner, exchanged casual conversation, curled up on opposite ends of the couch like strangers playing house. But I could feel the distance growing by the day, like someone had cut an invisible rope between us and we were drifting slowly out to sea. I hadn't brought up Logan again. Not because I didn't want to. I did almost every day. But there was something about the way Sierra dodged hard questions that made me hesitate. Every time I got close, she either turned it into a fight or redirected until I was the one apologizing for reading into things. So I kept quiet. But I watched. She changed her routine subtly. Started working late again. Started dressing different, not dramatically, but enough for me to notice. Her hair curled more often. A spritz of perfume on a weekday. Lipstick she hadn't touched since our second anniversary. The signs added up like grains of sand, each one small, but together impossible to ignore. Then, one Friday, I got a call from my supervisor. A job we had in Morristown got rescheduled because of equipment delays. That meant I was coming home a full day early, and more importantly, Sierra didn't know that. I didn't plan anything. No grand setup, no secret camera, no tricks. I just drove home in silence, a gnawing ache in my chest that I couldn't name but couldn't ignore either. Maybe part of me was hoping to catch her in a lie, not for revenge, but because uncertainty had started to feel worse than the truth. When I pulled into the driveway, everything looked normal. Her car was parked in its usual spot. The porch light was still flickering like it always did when she forgot to call the landlord. I sat there for a while in the truck, hands still on the steering wheel, trying to decide whether I wanted to go inside or just keep driving. Eventually, I got out. The sun had already dipped behind the trees, but there was still a soft, fading glow in the sky. The kind of light that makes everything feel a little too still. I unlocked the door quietly, not trying to sneak, but not exactly announcing myself either. The house was quiet, too quiet. No TV, no music, no dishes clinking. Just the low, muffled thump of something upstairs. Maybe a speaker. Maybe voices. Maybe both. I walked through the kitchen, pausing when I saw something on the floor near the island. A boot. Just one. Brown leather, heavy sole. Definitely not mine. I stared at it for a few seconds longer than I should have. Not because I was confused, I wasn't, but because some part of me was still clinging to hope that there was an explanation that didn't end in betrayal. Then I heard the water running upstairs. Shower. And voices. Not laughter. Not moans. Just voices. Low and quiet, but not panicked. Not secretive. As if this wasn't a moment they feared being caught in. I didn't rush. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking just enough to remind me I was still in control. I wasn't thinking about what I'd say. I wasn't thinking at all. At the top, I paused outside the bedroom door. It was open just a sliver. Inside, I saw clothes. A gray shirt, familiar, laid across the foot of the bed. Pants, crumpled on the floor. Sierra's robe halfway under the dresser like it had been discarded in a hurry. And her phone, face down, charging on the nightstand. I stepped inside. The room was warm. Humid from the shower. A candle burned on the dresser, sandalwood, the one she always used when she wanted to set a mood. The music I'd heard downstairs was coming from a Bluetooth speaker by the window. Some soft acoustic playlist she used to play when we were first dating. And then the door to the bathroom opened. She came out first. Hair damp, wrapped in a towel, her eyes down as she stepped into the room. She didn't see me right away. She was humming. Then she looked up and froze. For a full second, we both stood there in silence. Her eyes widened, not with surprise, but with something worse, recognition. Like she'd always known this moment might come, and now that it had, she wasn't ready. Behind her, Logan stepped into view. He wasn't dressed. Towel slung low on his hips, water still beating on his shoulders. He stopped short when he saw me, like a kid caught in the middle of a prank gone too far. His mouth opened slightly like he was about to say something. But I didn't give him the chance. I didn't shout. I didn't punch him. I didn't ask questions I already knew the answers to. I turned, walked out of the room, down the stairs, out the front door. And I took the laptop. It was sitting on the coffee table, still plugged in. Sierra's. Not mine. But we shared everything, at least we used to. The door clicked shut behind me. I didn't slam it. I didn't even lock it. I just got into my truck and drove until the familiar houses turned to gas stations and farmland and then nothing at all. I ended up at a rest stop off I-40 just past Jefferson County. The place was mostly empty, just a couple of trucks idling in the lot and a flickering vending machine humming under a single street lamp. I sat in the cab with the laptop on my lap, staring at the login screen. She hadn't logged out. That alone told me something. That she'd gotten careless. That maybe she thought she'd never get caught. Or maybe she didn't care anymore. The screen lit up, revealing the last thing she'd been looking at, an open tab on her email. Nothing dramatic. A shipping confirmation from some online clothing store. But the history bar at the top was cluttered. Tab still open. A trail. I clicked through, hands shaking a little. There were messages. Some drafts, some sent. Her inbox was clean, but her trash folder hadn't been emptied. I didn't read everything right away. I couldn't. My chest was tight, my jaw clenched, and part of me didn't want to see it laid out in black and white. But the other part, the part that had carried this weight for weeks, needed it. I minimized the browser and opened the webcam folder. We had installed an old home security system back when the neighborhood had a string of break-ins. I'd forgotten about it. Maybe she had too. It had a cloud storage account tied to the laptop. I clicked through the files. There were dozens. Footage from the bedroom, the hallway, the front porch. I watched one at random. There she was. With Logan. Kissing him in our kitchen. Same countertop where we made pancakes on Sundays. Same spot where she leaned against me laughing about stupid memes on my phone. Now she was pressed against it, whispering things I couldn't hear but could read in her eyes. I paused the video and shut the laptop. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't me twisting things. It was real. I had seen it. And now I couldn't unsee it. I didn't go home that night. Didn't even consider it. Instead, I drove until my gas light came on, then pulled into a truck stop somewhere near Crossville. I parked in the back, near a line of semi-trailers, and sat in the driver's seat with the laptop on my lap, engine off, cabin lights dimmed. The air inside the truck felt thinner by the hour, like I couldn't get a full breath no matter how hard I tried. But I couldn't bring myself to move. The footage replayed over and over in my mind. The way she smiled at him. The ease in her body language. The way he kissed her neck like it was muscle memory. They weren't clumsy or nervous. They weren't new. They were comfortable. I opened the laptop again around 2 a.m. driven by a sick need for confirmation. Not just a hunch. Not just a boot by the counter or a towel on the floor. I wanted evidence. The kind that doesn't leave room for doubt. I told myself I needed it for closure. Maybe that was true. Maybe it was just revenge in disguise. The cloud storage hadn't been wiped. Sierra either didn't remember it existed or she never thought I'd look. I started with the hallway footage. The camera faced the front door, motion triggered. Each clip was labeled by timestamp. I scrolled through months' worth of files. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. The first one that hit me was from 3 weeks ago, Tuesday, 5:42 p.m. Sierra walks in through the front door with Logan behind her. She's laughing. Tosses her keys in the bowl by the door. He closes the door behind them, leans in, kisses her. Just like that. No hesitation. Like this was his house too. I fast-forwarded. Another video. A different day. He lets himself in with a key. A key. That one stopped me cold. I opened the bedroom folder next. That camera had been installed more as a deterrent after a break-in scare 2 years back. We hadn't used it in months, at least I hadn't. Apparently, Sierra never disconnected it. The feed was still auto-saving to the drive, tucked neatly into a folder marked Mastercam. Inside were hundreds of clips. I clicked one from a Sunday afternoon. Sierra and I had argued that morning about her needing space. I remembered that day clearly. I'd gone fishing. Came home to a dark, quiet house. She claimed she spent the day reading. The footage told another story. She and Logan were in our bed, naked under the covers, laughing. At one point, she pulled out her phone and took a selfie. Later, I'd find that exact photo on the laptop in a hidden album. The date matched. I watched the videos in silence, one hand gripping the steering wheel, the other trembling on the trackpad. No sound, just grainy images. It was enough. Too much, really. One clip stood out. Not because of what happened in it, but because of what she said. She was lying on her stomach, head turned toward him. "This doesn't feel wrong," she whispered. "That's how I know it's right." I closed the lid. I didn't cry. Didn't scream. I just sat there in the dark truck, the weight of those words pressing down on me like cement. Something broke open inside me in that moment, not anger, not grief, just a kind of quiet clarity. She wasn't confused. She wasn't lost. She had chosen this. The next morning, I walked into a Best Buy 5 towns over and bought 3 flash drives. I sat in a booth at a diner off Highway 127, ordered a coffee I didn't drink, and transferred every file from the laptop, every photo, every video, every email. I labeled the folders neatly like I was building a case file: bedroom cam, front door, emails, photos. By noon, it was done. I turned off the laptop and left it on the table with the charger still plugged in. The waitress asked if I was coming back. I told her no. "Don't suppose you recycle electronics?" I asked. She smiled politely. "No, sir, but I can keep it behind the counter if you want." "Do whatever you like with it," I said. "I'm done with it." She looked confused, but nodded. I walked out without looking back. By the time I reached home, the house was empty. Sierra had left a note on the fridge in her handwriting. "Caleb, I don't know where you are, but we need to talk. Please don't shut me out." I didn't respond. I walked into the bedroom, opened the drawer where I kept all the bills and legal paperwork, and started pulling everything related to our shared accounts. Utilities, credit cards, streaming services. I logged in one by one and removed my name or hers, whichever made sense. I emptied the joint savings into my personal checking account. Left just enough to cover next month's mortgage, so she wouldn't be blindsided. I wasn't interested in punishing her. I just didn't want to be tied to her anymore. Then I packed a bag. A small one. Just clothes, chargers, the flash drives, and my passport. I didn't know where I was going yet. I just knew I had to be somewhere else. I left the house just after sunset. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't even close the door. It swung shut behind me in the breeze. Left ajar like a page in a book I'd stopped reading halfway through. I checked into a motel that didn't ask questions, paid cash, and lay on the bed staring at the ceiling for hours. When sleep didn't come, I opened my email and sent a message to a divorce attorney in Boise I'd found online. She came highly recommended. Former litigator. Tough. Straightforward. The email was short. Subject: urgent consultation. "Hi. I'm currently located in Tennessee but looking to relocate to Idaho. I'd like to begin proceedings for divorce immediately. I have documentation of infidelity and am prepared to move forward. Please advise on next steps and available times for a call. Caleb B." I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time before I hit send. That was the first time I felt something close to relief. Not peace. Not yet. but relief. The next morning, I bought a one-way plane ticket and made arrangements to have the rest of my things. Just the essentials, shipped out west. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not my mom. Not my coworkers. Not Sierra. Especially not Sierra. She texted me 3 times that week. Each message shorter than the last. Caleb, please. We need to talk. This doesn't have to go nuclear. But I was already gone. I deleted her number. Blocked her on every app. Removed myself from every photo album. Every shared doc. Every online fingerprint we'd built together. It was like erasing a shadow. Hard at first. Then easier than expected. Idaho wasn't a destination. It was an escape. I picked it off the map like someone closing their eyes and throwing a dart. It was far enough that nobody would follow, but quiet enough that I wouldn't lose my mind. I landed in Boise on a gray Tuesday afternoon with 1 duffel bag and no plans past surviving the next few weeks. The city didn't care who I was. Nobody looked twice, and I liked it that way. I found a place fast. An older man named Cliff had a trailer listed for rent just outside of town. Said he used to lease it to a nephew who moved to Nevada. It was bare bones. 1 bed, a busted heater, and a water heater that made a noise like it was coughing up its last breath. But it had 4 walls and a working lock, and that was all I needed. I paid 2 months up front in cash. Starting over? Cliff asked. Something like that, I replied. He didn't ask for details. I appreciated that. I found work just as fast. A small auto repair shop on the edge of town had a help wanted sign in the window. I walked in and asked to speak with the owner. Man named Bill, late 50s, looked me up and down and said, "You know how to rotate tires and keep your mouth shut?" "Absolutely. You start tomorrow." And that was it. My days fell into rhythm. Wake up before dawn. Shower in water that never got warm enough. Eat dry cereal out of the box. Clock in at the shop. Change oil. Replace brake pads. Rotate tires. Clock out. Go home. Repeat. No TV. No social media. No calls. No music. Just silence. I changed my phone number first. Burned the old one completely. New SIM, new device, new service plan. I didn't send the number to anyone. Not even my mother. Especially not her. Deleting social media took longer. Not because I was attached, but because I had to remember every password, every linked email. Facebook, gone. Instagram, gone. LinkedIn, gone. I even deleted Spotify. I didn't want songs reminding me of our Sunday drives or her voice humming in the kitchen. I stripped myself from the digital world like peeling off old paint. Then I made the call that really changed everything. Idaho has a rarely used statute, one of those relics of mid-century law still on the books, allowing civil lawsuits against a third party for contributing to the breakdown of a marriage. Most people don't even know it exists, but my lawyer did. "I've never seen a case like this go to trial," she warned. "But it sends a message. That's all I want," I said. "Let him feel it." We filed the paperwork that week. Civil complaint. Interference with marital relations. Harassment. Emotional distress. My lawyer attached *TS from the security system, photos, emails, and timestamps. It was airtight. Even if the court tossed it, the process would be public. And messy. And expensive for him. When Sierra found out, I knew instantly. She didn't call. She wrote a letter. In ink. No return address. Just my name, first name only, and the shop's mailing address written in handwriting I used to love. Inside was 1 page. "Caleb, please don't do this. Whatever you think this will fix, it won't. You're angry. I get that. But dragging this out in court will only make everything worse for everyone. Let's handle this privately. Please. I never wanted it to end like this. Sierra." There was no apology. Not once did she say she was sorry. I folded the letter neatly, placed it in the trash, and went back to sanding a carburetor that hadn't worked since 2004. Bill asked me later if I was okay. I said I was just tired. And I was. Tired of her voice in my head. Tired of remembering our wedding day and wondering how it had all crumbled so fast. Tired of defending myself to ghosts. But mostly, I was tired of pretending it still hurt the way it did that first night. Time has a way of sanding down the edges. The nightmares stopped first. At the start, I jolt awake thinking I heard her voice in the hall or Logan's laugh from the next room. But now I slept like a stone. No dreams. No voices. Just dark. Then my appetite came back. Slowly. One morning I woke up and actually wanted coffee. The week after, I started eating eggs again. Small things. My mother eventually tracked me down, probably through the lawyer. She left a voicemail on the shop phone. Bill handed me the receiver one morning and said, "Think this one's for you." I listened in the back room. "Caleb," she said, her voice shaky but strong, "I don't know where you are or what you're doing, but I need to hear your voice. I'm not asking for answers. I just need to know you're okay." She paused. "I told you to give her a chance. That's on me. If I could take that back, I would." Another pause. "I love you." Click. I didn't call her back. Not because I blamed her. I didn't. She believed in Sierra because I did. That wasn't a crime. It was just painful. Her voice reminded me of all the things I'd lost. But I saved the voicemail. Some nights I played it just to remember what it felt like to be known. One morning I stepped outside and realized the snow had started melting. Spring in Idaho doesn't make a scene, it just kind of shows up. The frost softens. The trees whisper green. I stood on the porch of the trailer holding a thermos full of burnt gas station coffee and thought I could live here forever. Nobody knew me. Nobody asked questions. Nobody expected anything from me but work done right and tools put away. The simplicity felt like freedom. But not everything healed at the same pace. There were still moments when I'd walk into the grocery store and instinctively reach for the creamer Sierra liked, hazelnut almond. Or I'd hear a song in passing that sounded like the one she used to hum while brushing her teeth. Or I'd glance at my phone and expect a "just thinking about you" text that would never come. And always I'd see Logan's face in my mind. Casual. Unbothered. Standing in the bedroom that once held every dream I'd ever believed in. That image never left. I never told anyone what happened. Not the guys at the shop. Not Cliff. Not even my mother. To them, I was just a quiet guy who worked hard and kept to himself. Nobody needed to know what I'd left behind. And the longer I stayed silent, the easier it became to carry the weight alone. The lawsuit dragged on quietly. Logan hired a lawyer. Tried to claim the affair wasn't active during the marriage. But the timestamp said otherwise. My lawyer was good. Ruthless even. She didn't want to settle. She wanted to make a point. I let her. Every subpoena, every hearing date, every filing, each one was a reminder that there were consequences. That no matter how many shower towels and fake smiles they'd shared, what they did had cost someone something real. The judge moved slowly, but progress was progress. Sierra didn't reach out again. I assume her lawyer told her to go silent. Fine by me. I wasn't looking for more words. I was done with words. I wanted quiet. And I'd finally found it.my mother called again 3 weeks later. This time I picked up. Her voice cracked when she heard mine. She didn't ask for details, just told me she was proud of me for surviving. She blamed herself in that way parents do when they can't protect you from your own choices. I told her not to. I meant it. Life stayed small. I worked long shifts. Lived quiet. People didn't ask why I never talked about my past. I think they sensed something in me had folded in on itself. I wasn't angry anymore, just hollow. The kind of empty that doesn't echo, just absorbs. Nights were the hardest. Not because I missed Sierra, but because I missed who I used to be.